everyone, reporting today for Fun Robotics Network. I'm Abbasi, with me here, none other than Team 23521, DeSoto Technix from Mississippi. They're representing the state of Mississippi at the United States Inaugural Governor's Cup. Have been absolutely insane. The two highest scores throughout qualifications, going into playoffs as the first pick of the first seed Alliance. They just have the fastest transfer, one of the smoothest robots I've seen this season. I can't wait to jump into it on this Behind the Bot.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. DeSoto Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to sudica.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts. Build your alliance with so many other FIRST alumni who go to Kettering University. Every student at Kettering experiences their cutting-edge co-op programs that seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds. Kettering co-ops are a fully immersive working experience at the leading edge of industry. Head on over to kettering.edu/first to learn more about their incredible programs and to get more information.
So DeSoto Technix, first question for you guys. I think one thing we've seen with your robot season after season, it's very compact. So why did you choose to maintain that very small form factor this year?
Yes, so the reason for that is this season would be very maneuverable. Then there's defense, there's different areas you can and cannot be in. You want to be able to move around fast, so being small allows us to be as light as possible and also maneuver more easily.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So let's get the robot flipped up, take a look at that drivetrain. While we're doing that, walk me through exactly what are the robot dimensions, with and without that intake sticking out.
So the frame itself, not including the intake, it is, I think, about 12.5 by 13.8 inches, around that area. So it's very within like 13 by 14 inches.
Okay, I see, yeah. And as far as drivetrain ratios, what wheels are you running, what RPM?
We're using 435 RPM motors, and those are belted to 450 RPM with Goodbuilder grip force wheels with the new 30A rollers.
Have you had to replace those rollers, or have they been pretty solid throughout the entire season?
We have not had to replace them this season.
Okay, sounds good. So now jumping into the intake, I think this is one of those things you guys have just absolutely mastered. Walk me through just this front stage. What are the different wheels you have going on?
Yeah, so for the intake, we have these 48mm vector rollers from Ferret Components, and they're very grippy. And then in the center, we just have the 48mm geckos, and we also have grip tape on the front right here that really helps getting that edge. And all the other rollers throughout our transfer are just the 48mm.
So talking about compression, what compression are you running on your intake? How did you tune it? Tell us.
Yeah. So the compression on the front stage is actually 8mm, which may seem like a lot for like the vector rollers, but it's not quite on the center of the ball. And also that's with 5-inch balls. And also the intake arm where it's mounted is 3D printed. So we went through a lot of iterations of tuning the compression, and all throughout the intake, I believe the compression is 9mm, and yeah, so 8mm throughout the entire thing. Let's just put some artifacts on the sides over here and run that intake. I mean, it's just beautiful how quickly you guys can collect these things. So talking a little bit about these front bumpers right here, I've noticed a lot of teams, they'll say, oh, wedge, but you guys don't have a wedge. It's perfectly flat front wall. Did you not need it? Did you try it? You just chose not to do it? Walk us through that. Yeah, so we chose to use just vector rollers instead of wedges. And the reason we did that, for one, just vector rollers are a lot more compact way to really get good vectoring, and also it puts the intake like a lot farther out in front of the robot. And the reason why we like that is so then like balls can come in like at an angle, and like so you just have a larger area of intaking rather than like wedges.
That makes a ton of sense. Talking about RPMs really quick, is it one motor intake? If so, what RPM?
Yeah, so we have a dual system with our motors. Our intake motor is running at, it's belted with 2 stages of belts, one here, and it's belted to 2,500 RPM, so that really gets the touch it, own it quality. And we have another motor back here that is belted to 2,000 RPM. And the reason why we have a split power system is so then when the first ball comes in, the transfer stage doesn't slow down the intake at all.
I see. So now talking a little bit of software, I noticed when you guys collected those 3 artifacts, you had the first one, you had the second, intake was still running. As soon as you got that third one in, everything just shut down. So how are you doing that? What's the secret sauce behind that?
Well, we have 3 brake beam pairs inside the intake. We need to get the intake balls out real quick. But as soon as we detect that the first one is entered, we log that, and then we wait for the second one, and we wait for the third one. And once all three of the brake beam pairs have been tripped, then we immediately shut off the intake after a small delay to just ensure that the last intake is perfectly in there.
Yeah,
And-
that makes perfect
Yeah.
sense. I know other teams have looked at using current sensors just that are built into the motors. Did you guys explore this and then chose not to for some reason, or why did you go specifically for the brake beams as opposed to like a color sensor, distance sensor, or anything else?
Color sensors take a lot longer to pull compared to a brake beam sensor, because a brake beam sensor is just a digital sensor, whereas a color sensor would be I2C, which is much slower for the robot to pull. So that was the main reason we chose that. We've definitely thought about current sensors, but we haven't done very much research into that.
Yeah,
just because it's more complicated.
Yeah, and also following up on that, where exactly did you get your brake beams from? A lot of teams just don't know information about this.
We get our brake beams from Adafruit, Adafruit, and those are the, I think, 3.5 millimeter bulb ones.
Which ones?
3.5 millimeter.
Okay, got it. So now taking one more question about the transfer, do you guys have, I think I see a counter roller back here for the transfer. Why did you add that? Have you had it the entire season, or you chose to add it later?
That was added when we created our V2 robot. The main reason for that is our dead space in that turret. So there's that distance between your transfer stage and the shooter itself, and those counter rollers allow us to prevent any rotation on the artifacts from transferring. So it gives them a linear momentum, and then imparts, push them into the turret, and we don't have to worry about dead spaces.
I see. So when you had this, was this just to solve jams, or do you also see increases in your transfer rates?
This was added in our CAD for V2, so we have not seen how it works without them.
Okay,
But we
yeah.
do believe they help with the consistency and the speed of transfer.
Got it. Let's jump into the turret. You guys have this fantastic, super large herringbone gear going on here. Walk me through the ratios. I see you have 2 servos, but walk me through exactly what's going on with your turret specifically.
So this turret is powered by 1-to-1 Axon Minis. So we have a 2-stage reduction. It is a 100. It's a 5-to-1 and then a 1-to-5. So this is an overall 1-to-1 reduction. Allows us to use the. We did it so we could use the internal encoder, and then that is we use a GoBuild gears for the first stage reduction, and then 2 3D printed herringbone gears for the second stage reduction.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Now, as far as running them in servo mode, have you had any issues with like the range or anything like that, or any advice you have to teams, like how do you sync the 2 servos, things like that?
Well, the way we sync the servos is we set the both of the servos to the midpoint, and then we just bumped it by very small amounts until they align. And we did that with the servos gears disassembled, so they can move freely relative to each other. And then we reassembled it once we had them centered.
That
saved
makes a
off
ton of sense. As far as like, have you had any issues with gear skipping or anything like that, or that hasn't been a problem for you guys?
We have not had a problem with that.
Cool. Now, jumping into the shooter itself, I thought you guys were running a direct drive double motor shooter the whole season, but when I was taking a closer look, I see you have these super small belts. So why go for that belted design?
We started the season with a similar design as we wanted to be able to prototype a shooter accurate to our final design or a more refined design. So we use those belts. It allows us to change the center distances of the different parts. We could move the motors around. We had more freedom with that design, as when you're prototyping, you want to be able to change as many things as possible.
Yeah.
So it just allows us to have max modularity on the design.
That makes a ton of sense. Now, talking about wiring, I think you guys have just managed the wiring on this robot really beautifully. I always get worried when I see teams having just wires hanging out, but this is not a concern at all. What advice do you have for teams looking to wire like you are?
First, we learned this on our V1 robot, where we have this 3D printed part here. It allows us to mount these wires going up linearly, and this keeps them up on top of the robot instead of from hanging out. We also have these badge attractors, which keep that centered, and then we mount them on the edges of our turret gear, which gives them a max amount of rotation, so we can have more rotation with less wire.
That makes a ton of sense. Now, talking about the hood, it's very, very minimalist. Did you guys start with a larger hood, decide to go down to it, or did this just work and you haven't decided to reinforce it at all? Walk me through the structural robustness of this design.
This shooter archetype was the first one we went with. It was one of our designs inspired by an FRC shooter. So we started with this overall archetype, but the hood was smaller, and it was also it wasn't as wide, and it had a single point in the middle of a contact. And we're experimenting with these rail designs that have only contact on the sides. We're just experimenting for better what better centering of the artifacts when shooting?
And I see you guys have you have the gray 3D printed rails here, but then you have some grip tape, or what's going on up here? Is this non-slip or it is slip tape?
So one interesting thing we have discovered is that when we tried using slip tape or anything that reduced friction, our far zone shots got way more inconsistent and the groupings were worse. So I actually put grip tape on it, it's baseball grip tape. And we've seen that help us increase the consistency of backspin so we can get more consistent groupings from all shooting zones.
I see. That makes a ton of sense. Now, one last thing I want to go into before we talk about Endgame is your guys' driving strategy. I mean, you guys are just non-stop on the field. You're always moving, so fluid. How do you do that? What advice do you have for rookie teams who are looking to drive at a level like yours?
I'd say just maximize your drive practice. Before competitions, we do it at least an hour every single day. And try to practice scenarios that will happen on a real field. Make sure you're practicing leaving protected zones, so because there's a lot of defense in those. And try to practice with another robot on the field, or maybe one of your teammates blocking areas or hitting the gates. Try to make your practice as accurate as possible and just repetition.
And so do you guys do full matches, or are you kind of just we'll start with a 14-volt battery and until it reaches 12 volts, we're just going to keep shooting and keep shooting?
We practice doing full matches. And we sometimes run the auto, but that depends on if we're troubleshooting. But normally we'll set up the field as if an auto was run and then go straight to tele out. But we do time it with an official timer in as official game conditions as we can make it.
Awesome. Yeah. I think last thing we're going to talk about today is the end game. We haven't seen it yet at Governor's Cup. You guys haven't had a reason to show it off. So let's see it now. Walk us through what's going on here, and then we'll ask some questions about that.
So one of the game challenges this season was being able to have part 2 robots in that base zone. And we decided to be able to do that by lifting the robot. So we have a clutch PTO, which transfers the power from our back drivetrain motors to our spool shaft. And that allows us to transfer those motors because we have a motor limit. And then that spool will then pull these slides down on this belly pan off the bottom of the robot, which allows us to ascend and allow another part.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get the robot lifted and then we'll ask some more questions about it and wrap up the interview. So, wow, yeah, look at that go up. That's just fantastic. So it's like a 2-second, 3-second lift time maybe. While we're up here, walk us through all the components. I see the slides here. I see some magnets here. What do you have these magnets for?
Yes, so the magnets are as a passive way for us to have the belly pan attached to the robot. As we didn't want to have retraction stringing, we want to minimize the complexity. So magnets are how we keep that belly pan attached to the robot.
Yeah, that's genius. Now talking about the ratchet, what are you using for the ratcheting mechanism and how do you engage your PTO?
Yeah, so we use just COTS ratchets. They're 7mm. They fit on the shafts. They are cut in half. We can fit them, and they're on the spool shaft directly behind the robot signs. And then we have this slot in the robot signs that we can access to flip the direction of them. That'll just reverse the direction of which way the ratchets go, so we can let the robot down.
Wow, that's just fantastic. As far as motor ratios go and things like that, did you have to do any calculations that rookie teams can look at to understand? Or, how did you pick that ratio for the spools and any gearing and things you have?
Luckily for this ascent, we had 1-to-1, so we just have the motor directly geared 1-to-1 to there's this there's a middle shaft the PTO is on, and then the PTO shaft has a gear attached to the spool shaft as we didn't have a room enough to fit them on the same shaft. So the spool shaft is above it, and that's also geared 1-to-1 with a 20mm spool. Overall,
yeah, and
the gears are all 1-to-1.
The PTO itself, how are you engaging that PTO? Is it servo based, and can we see it on the robot, or kind of hidden in the depths?
I do have a sheet that we made so you can see it. We have the clutch right here, so disengage, and that is the PTO clutch on that shaft. That shaft will then gear to this shaft that has the spool on it. You can also see the ratchets right there in front of the spools.
So it's just a simple servo to push and engage.
Yes. So we have one servo for both sides. So you can see if you look underneath the robot or up here from the top. We have one servo that will pull a string, which tensions the string, disengaging the clutches. And then when we want to engage it, we move that servo, the string detensions, and then the clutches again.
Fantastic. Yeah, DeSoto Technix, you guys have just had one of the most robots this season. So glad to see you at your full potential in these last few matches at the Governor's Cup. Can't wait to see how you do in the playoffs. Thank you for representing the state of Mississippi, for just demonstrating how much technical excellence you have in this robot. Reporting for Fun Robotics Network, I'm Abbas, and this is Team 23521 DeSoto Technix. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. Build your alliance with so many other FIRST alumni who go to Kettering University. Every student at Kettering experiences their cutting-edge co-op programs that seamlessly blend the professional and academic worlds. Kettering co-ops are a fully immersive working experience at the leading edge of industry. Head on over to kettering.edu/first to learn more about their incredible programs and to get more information. Studica Robotics is inspiring teams to build better robots with their new array of FTC team options. Check out their updated bevel gears and Maverick hex shaft motors, Planetary gearbox options, and 6mm hex components and shafts for extreme power transmission. Go to studica.com/robots to learn more and apply for discounts.